Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Writers Infusion. I'm Susan, your host. I'm here with our critiquers, starting with Dave, Julie, Ed at the end, and Jen. Jen is part of our local writers group and she's joining us today to critique, so we're really excited to have her with us.
Yay!
Yes. And our writer is with us today. This is Archana Apte. And she is a local high school student who's been writing since she was 6. I personally think it shows. I think her writing's great. So let's hear her story, and we'll go from there.
This is the first part of a piece I'm writing. The story is called Backyard. Riss is dying. Her roots are shriveled, her branches peeling, and her whole countenance sickly under the autumn sun. Why? Because 70-year-old Bob McKeon, in his strange grief, refuses to water his apple tree. Apparently the very sight of it triggers painful memories of his beloved wife, planting the sapling and naming it Riss, and carving B+K in the bark like a 12-year-old, and selling the apples at the town farmer's market and other such sentimental idiocy. There was one time in June when Bob, wearing wrinkled overalls and lugging a watering can, opened the screen door, took one look at Riss, and started bawling enough to water her without the stupid watering can. Bob buried Kathy McKeon behind Riss because she loved the apple tree so much. To further honor his wife's memory, Bob refused to even look at the tree afterward and left Riss to rot. Thanks to Bob, Riss is a disgrace to the McKeons' carefully tended flower beds and perfectly painted white fence and manicured lawn. They're emblems of suburbia, if you will. Riss learned what an emblem was from Emil the rat, who hoards human junk in the garage and occasionally updates Riss on human culture. For example, a common food item used at cookouts is applewood smoked bacon, strips of pig cooked with a special wood that apparently is not from apple trees, but of course made the perfect excuse for Bob to strip Riss of some of her wood in mid-July. The worst part was he held the cookout in somebody else's backyard, so his neighbors wouldn't see the desecration of Riss. Low blow, Bob McKeon, low blow. Anyway, it's September, which means Riss should be fruiting. She's not, obviously. Instead, Riss gets to watch the deciduous trees turn all kinds of reds and yellows and oranges while she withers away. The time for action has come. Bob must die for neglecting his wife's memory and needlessly endangering lives. Thanks to him, Riss may never seed an apple tree, and all those who seek solace in her branches will clutch gaping maws in their hearts and faint from too much sun on their heads. Okay, well maybe the last part was a bit much. But at any rate, Riss has an ally. Brox the restless red squirrel harbors a special hatred for Bob ever since he invented a bird feeder that prevents squirrels from eating from it, and then chased out Brox's entire family when they stole the tulip bulbs last fall. To be honest, Riss thinks Bob overreacted to the great squirrel exodus of 2013. But if misdirected anger gets her an ally, she's not going to complain. Riss, hey, you listening or what? Brox's chattering snaps the tree out of her thoughts. The squirrel is grinning upside down at her, a gleam in his dark eyes. Remember yesterday you said you were going to get the snakes to disable his carbon monoxide alarms and kill Bob that way? Well, that's a stupid idea, because Riss raises an eyebrow. Kathy carved Riss a face that moved when she wasn't looking. Kindly don't swing so quickly. You're making my malnourished head spin. Sorry, Reese. Brox plops onto a branch and wiggles in excitement. I just thought that he'd notice broken alarms right away. You know how obsessive he is about his house nowadays. So I was thinking we could put rat poison in his food instead. When he's not looking, of course. It would be much easier than figuring out human electronics, although I think Emil has a copy of every user's manual in the house. Riss chuckles, a low murmur shaking her branches. Rat poison? I don't think that would kill Bob. Might make him sick is all. A withering leaf lands on Brock's nose. Well, I'm sure Emil knows something. Maybe he has human poison too. Or varnish, some sort of toxic cleaner. I don't know. But I like this idea. The young squirrel's face hardens. Agonizing, hard to figure out in a murder case, simple? Brox has always been a bit too focused for his own good. He led the tulip theft of 2013 despite being too young for such a position, and Riss likes his fire and clarity of focus. I think this is the best idea so far, the tree concurs. Why don't you find Emil and we can iron out the details? As he salutes with a, "You got it, boss," and scampers off, Riss realizes she needs his quick feet too. A brilliant mind rendered useless by a stationary body can really bring a plant down, you know? It's atrocious. One day, Riss will find a way to mobilize plant kind, but until then, she can focus on bringing down Bob McKeon.
Good.
Thank you. That was really good. I really enjoyed your story.
Thanks.
I was struggling to find things that might be wrong with it. So I just want to start off by saying the characters were really fun. I want to read the rest of the story. It was very
Nice.
witty. And I just really liked it. So I think I'll let someone else start with maybe what they thought they could critique.
Yeah, it's very clever. You have a powerful beginning. Riss is dying. Bam. You know, we have that. And I really like the narrator addressing the reader. I mean, we don't really know who the narrator is because, you know, they're talking about everybody else in third person. But the effect is like somebody reading a book and kind of making asides to the reader, you know, like low blow, Bob, you know, that
Right.
kind of thing. So
I
that
love
I
that
think
line.
is that I think is really fun.
I like the personification of the tree,
Thanks.
but I would like for you to elaborate, if you wouldn't mind, how long Kathy tended Riz, and when did she die?
Okay.
How long ago was it that she died? So we have some sense of her tending this tree for decades or
Right.
for a few months.
Like a bit more of a backstory.
And how did she die? I asked because my boys and I are right now reading The Secret Garden, and Mrs. Craven tended a beautiful rose garden and then was unfortunately killed by, I'm sorry, I'm laughing, it's ironic, by a branch of a tree falling on her. So you don't need to make that her death. It may be that it was cancer, but it would be good to know how. And you said on the first page, to further honor his wife's memory, I think I might change it to because it was too painful.
Yeah.
He refused to look after the tree. So
Yeah.
he
I
knows
noted
how
that too.
strong this one was attached to the
Yeah.
tree.
Didn't
By
seem
the
like he
way-
was really honoring her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you meant. I think just the wording needs to be shifted.
Right.
It's,
It was like
what-
sort of like the trees, like very sarcastic.
Yeah, oh, I see, yes.
Yeah.
And why Riz? Why did you choose Riz as a name? I also wondered.
I like
Can we
that
explain
name.
that at some point? Does it tie into Kathy? Is it
Yeah.
a nickname for a tree? Is there a backstory, which is maybe given up elsewhere in your
Yeah,
novel?
I just thought that it sounds like leaves in the wind.
Oh,
I like
the
that.
rustle, I like
So-
that.
Very
Yeah.
clever. I said on page 2, there's a paragraph here that says, okay, well, maybe the last part was a bit much. The next sentence, but at any rate, Riss had an ally. I just made a note that I thought the sentence was a little long, I was a little confused by it, so you might just want to take a second look at that sentence.
Just the first one,
Um,
or the second one.
Where it says, but at any rate. And I
Oh,
noted
okay.
it on here, so you'll see it. And then just a couple of places where I wasn't sure who the pronoun was referring to, and I made note of that in here as well.
Okay.
You want to go?
Okay, Dave.
Let me be the
Curmudgeon.
Yeah, the horror of the group. I loved your first story, and it was magnificently well written, as is this. There's an authority to the voice. You trust the author to take you where she wants you to go. Okay. Given that, young starting authors have to understand that not 100% of their stories are going to reach 100% of the audience. For me, this story, I just couldn't get into it because maybe I just can't relax enough to allow a tree and a squirrel to, happy little Disney situations to take place. And I was trying to find a deeper meaning to the story. Is this an allegory? Are you trying to present a deeper meaning, instruction of some sort, how people deal with it? I don't know. Again, if it's a novella, you're going to have maybe 80 or 100 pages. We're 3 pages into it, so I'm not sure. If it is an allegory, I have to be locked into the comparisons between what's written on the page and the instruction that is trying to be given. A good example of that would be Traffic, a singing group from the 60s, sang a British madrigal called John Barleycorn Must Die. And it talks about John Barleycorn and how they took him out and they cut his legs off and then they cut his head off and they crushed him and so on. But it was all talking about getting...
So it's a love song.
But it had nothing to do with a person. It was Barleycorn trying to make liquor.
Excellent, excellent.
So John Barleycorn Must Die, boom, it's not John. So I don't know if this is an allegory yet. I don't know if that's where you're headed, but I should know soon if it's going to be. There were a couple of things in the story that troubled me. The second paragraph, Bob buried Kathy McKeon behind Riss. If he loves her as much as he does, why would he take the very image of her and kill it?
That's the, like, confusion that Riss has.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding, and I don't get it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
It
It'll be,
seems
like,
irrational.
revealed later. Yeah, this is like the first.
You see, at
Very
this point in
first.
this, and that's great that you knew that you were doing it, but at this point, I should know that it's not a mistake. It's not an error that was written into the story thinking that it made sense, because it doesn't make sense. You don't kill something. And again, I'm stuck into reality.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, you might want to say, you might want to have Riss say something like, why is he doing this?
Right, like something a bit more explicit.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
because so far, it's all third person, and we're being told that Bob is doing these things. But again, Riss is the victim of Bob. So, going to your point, Riss might be wondering, why is he acting this way if he liked her so much?
Right.
And for me, and I think your writing is beautiful. So I'm going to be somewhere in between the curmudgeon and the glowing reviews, right? And I write for children, so I'm totally bought into this talking squirrel and all that. I love that. But it was unclear to me why Riss. Why is he only neglecting Riss, but the rest of the yard is pristine? And to Julie's point, I thought, I'm starting to think Riss must have been responsible for Kathy's death somehow, and that's why. Did a branch fall? Did she have a heart attack while tending to the tree? The other thing too is that if Riss
That's a
is
good idea.
Yeah,
Like with the heart attack while attending to the tree
I
or
don't
something.
know.
That would be a good reason.
And if Riss is the main character,
If she's a maple tree, you can tap, but not otherwise.
bunch. We need drums. If Riss is the main character, Brox is the one with all the ideas. I think I think Riss
Good
has to, even though she's stationary and she can't move, she has to be the mastermind. And Brox is her minion to carry out her deeds.
I tried to make that.
So I'd make
in there. I
her
don't know
more of the
how.
one pushing the story forward. And right now, Riss is not sympathetic to me, even though Mr. McKeon is slowly killing her and neglecting her. I'm still not sympathetic yet.
Because
So
their motivations aren't like.
it's not
heavily
clear.
ironed out.
It's not clear. And the last thing I would say, and this is me, and I'm not, and I have a bunch of word choices here, but like I said, I think your writing is beautiful. Some of it kind of goes overboard, I think. Like they can read user manuals, and I'm cool with suspending reality. I get that. And when you're building a world, and here you are building a fantasy world because these animals read and they know what, carbon monoxide thing, and they know electronics. So I guess I would, that kind of pulled me out of the story just a little bit. I thought it was a little bit too much. Maybe they don't know what, maybe it's that machine that he uses, or, but not that,
yes.
like they know
Like
what,
the level of
like,
sophistication.
how would they know what a murder trial is? Do you know what I mean? So I guess I would soften that and maybe use more vague things. That thing that he reads, or that,
Yes.
he's always checking that. It must be something. Let's mess with it. But otherwise, like I said, your writing is lovely.
I'd like to
Maybe
praise
to-
your vocabulary. I apologize. Solace and harbor, deciduous, concur is really nice words to pepper in there. Moz, good word. I don't know that I would use it just like that.
Yeah.
Just check the.
Actually, that phrase, I question, clutch gaping maws in their hearts. It's like-
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it'd be in
was-
their hearts, but
Yeah.
use maw in another way because it's brilliant.
Yeah, that was
By the way-
Riss is. I kind of wanted to make Riss a little bit like overly paranoid. So like in her her over emotional state, she tends to like garble her mind, and she tends to like,
Yeah, but
be a
this
little
isn't her
bit
talking.
outside of
This is the narrator talking.
True.
So if you want
I was considering making it like first person.
Well, that could be
Would that
quite
be an
interesting.
interesting switch?
Oh,
That could be quite interesting. I would attempt that.
Yeah, because I just written something that was in second person before, and I was like, do I want to?
oh, by the way, I like that it's in present tense.
Yeah.
That gives it an immediacy that's, that's often true of children's books, which this kind of superficially resembles because everything talks. But, obviously this goes beyond that.
And to what Jen had said about not feeling quite sympathetic yet for Riss, because Riss is so sarcastic, maybe if you just add a little bit more in to make us feel, badly for her. That she, she
She's
can.
dying. You don't
Right,
feel
she's
bad
dying, so
enough?
she can.
Right.
And
But
the-
just a couple little things here and there would probably change that.
And she lost Kathy. She must be mourning
Yes.
Kathy also.
Very good.
Yeah, I was gonna go into that.
Yeah, the curmudgeon speaks again. A tree about to fruit, or should have been fruit, doesn't need to be watered.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
it
other.
doesn't?
Yeah.
Research. I did some
Oh, that's
research on apple
Yeah,
trees, and I'm
it's also-
like,
they're on their own.
I changed the word water. Like when they're saplings, you have to water, and I'm not.
Or change it to a corn
Yeah.
plant or
Oh.
something.
I also read that
Barley.
one apple
Barley
tree, and I don't know if it's true, it's on the internet, so it must be true, that apple trees aren't self-pollinating, you need at least two. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, and you can suspend reality here and not have two or twins, but, just, you want to always do some research just to make sure that, what you're putting in there is,
Right.
Oh, have
is
another tree
correct.
reaching over that white
Maybe
picket
Riss
fence
has a
from the
fellow.
other yard.
Yeah,
Archana.
Yeah.
There you go.
So.
Is there anything
Good.
else you want to, comment on? Tell us?
I think, this is there were some good suggestions. I might change this to first person to make Riss's head a bit more solidified.
Oh.
And I was definitely planning on going into Bob and Brock's, their relationship. Kathy and Riss, their relationship is pretty important, although it doesn't seem like that now. And I think, I think Riss wasn't supposed to be horribly sympathetic. Because I wanted it to be from the point of view of someone you because I was originally gonna do it in Brox's point of view.
Oh.
I just felt like he would be more a little bit more sympathetic, but then I thought that it would be interesting to do it from someone who couldn't move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely adds
Better
tension.
choice.
Very good.
Yeah.
It definitely adds tension. How
Well,
is she gonna make
tension,
it
she has a
happen?
knot in her stomach. She's a tree.
You on a roll today, girl. And I love the Great Squirrel Exodus of 2013.
Yeah.
And
I
the
do too.
great bulbs, that was.
Yeah, as you keep writing it, the story will tell you where to go.
Yes.
You'll have very little control of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to help you
The
along.
characters just start talking to
That's
you,
right.
and you're like,
That's
"What?
right.
That's
Yeah,
just
leave me
not
alone,
that."
leave me
It'll
alone.
establish
happens.
roots and then bloom.
It will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ding.
All right, well, is everyone all set?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
It
you.
was really fun to read this and to have you
Thanks.
with us today. There's more info about Archana on our website. We have a Meet the Guests page. So take a look. She's got her own blog, and we can learn all about her. She's got a lot going on. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Writers Infusion, and keep writing. Thanks.
You could branch out into all sorts of characters.
Oh, that's the third joke today. Oh, no.
You can also ignore anything that we said.
I understand.
It's your story, so.
Yeah.
I take
It's your story.
and then
There you go.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really a
So-
pleasure to read.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
It
great.
was, but you
Great
decide
stuff.
who the main characters, because that will change the vantage point, that will change.
And you have to send it to us
language.
when you're done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.